Today we're going to be replacing the right rear leg on the DJI Mavic Mini. First, take out the battery, and then what you want to do is simply turn over the drone, and remember, you only need a Phillips screwdriver. There are two in the back of 2 Phillips screws, and there's going to be 2 in the front that are holding the upper shell of the DJI Mavic Mini drone shell on. You take those off, and then you use a plastic spudger, and you go all around the body, and then you pop that upper shell off, and then you lay it to the side, and then you are ready for the next step. Remember, all of the screws that you're going to be dealing with today are Phillips screws and are of the same size, and you can use the same screwdriver on all of them. And also remember that the shell to the DJI Mavic Mini is very fragile, so be careful when handling it. Next, you want to desolder the arm connectors that connects to the motor. They are color coded. You do not need a special soldering iron, just basic soldering skills, and desolder 3 wires. And once you do that, you are ready to turn the drone over and then start pulling the leg and disconnecting the leg from the drone body itself. See, we're going to turn it over, and you can see there are the 3 wires that go up inside the drone. You just give it a slight tug, and then there you go. The arm is separated from the drone. And then upon inspecting the arm, you can see that this was clearly wrecked, and you can see it cracked and broken, and the motor has also taken damage. Now, you want to take the new arm and twist the 3 wires into kind of a spiral shape, and what this does, it lets it fit inside the metal tube to where the leg goes into that bracket a lot easier. So you push it inside of that metal tube, and you'll see that you cannot push it all the way through. So what you need to do is get a pair of tweezers, and you put it down inside of that joint down there, and you pull up on the 3 wires, the 3 motor wires, and you're going to keep gently pulling and tugging until it has clearance and the 3 wires are up through the shell. And then once that is accomplished, you will be able to start reattaching the arm to the Mavic Mini of the body of the drone. You can see here I'm pulling the wires up through, and then I'm ready to reattach the right rear leg to the drone. It only fits one way, and then it just snaps back on there. You can see right here as it goes back in, that plastic is going to go over the metal, and then the wires are clear, and then we are ready for the next step. In the next step, you have to put the screws back onto the arm of the Mavic Mini, in this case the right rear arm. And as I said before, these are all Phillips screws of the same size. So I have a magnetic tip screwdriver, and I'm going to be tightening down the first screw in the rear leg. Now, you don't want to over tighten it. Like I said before, the plastics in the DJI Mavic Mini are fragile. So you just keep tightening this screw down until you know it is tightened. It's on there good and firm. And then what you're going to want to do is turn over the Mavic Mini drone and then fold the leg back. And then you're going to want to put in that second screw. And remember, all of the screws are Phillips, so you can use the same screwdriver throughout this whole project. So just start tightening down that second screw in the right rear arm of the drone, and you want to get it tight, but you don't want to get it too tight, because you don't want to strip it and you don't want to damage the plastic. So once you torque it on there good, you're then going to want to test out the arm to see if it unfolds and then folds back. You want to see if it's on there good and tight. In this case, it is. And we are then ready for the next step on repairing this drone. Okay, what you're going to see is that these 3 wires, you're going to need to splice the ends of them off, because on the old arm, as you can see here, that they have about 1 centimeter of wire exposed so that you can make a connection on the solder joints. So you're going to want to take the caps off of the wires on the new arm so that they can make a connection to the solder joints on the DJI Mavic Mini ESC board here. And you can see it is coded. W stands for white, B stands for black, and R stands for red. And you will solder them back together exactly how you unsoldered them, but you will connect those colors of wires to the solder joints that are labeled with their color. And it's as simple as that, soldering it back together. And again, I'm just using a $10 soldering gun to do this. Now once that is all done, you're going to want to start putting the top shell of the DJI Mavic Mini drone back on. Now it may take a few tries to get this just right, because the tabs can be a little frustrating to say the least, and you don't want to break them. But once you get the feel and the groove of how the top shell goes back on, you go all the way around the body of the drone and you just kind of give it a little bit of pressure and push down, and you can hear it kind of start snapping back on and into place a little bit at a time. And that is what I'm doing here. I'm just getting a feel for it, and I'm letting it snap back into place a little bit at a time. Don't be in any hurry here. Now, what I'm doing now is those 4 screws that hold on the upper shell of the DJI Mavic Mini, those are the last 4 screws. There's 2 in the back here and 2 in the front by the gimbal right there. And those 4 screws I'm going to be putting back in one at a time. First I'm going to start with the back. And again, I'm going to emphasize, don't over tighten these, because you could break the plastics. The plastics on the Mavic Mini are very fragile. That's why you want to handle it with love and care here. So we're going to go to the second screw, and that again, this holds on the upper shell of the Mavic Mini. And after I get this one in, I'm going to torque it to where it's tight, but I'm not going to over torque it. So after you get this done, you're then going to work up by the gimbal. Now notice you won't have to touch the gimbal, and be careful not to hit it. There's a screw on each side of the gimbal that needs to be tightened down. Again, all of these screws are Phillips screws, and you can use the same screwdriver for this entire project. Now you tighten these screws down, and once these 4 screws are tightened down, then the upper shell of the DJI Mavic Mini will be back on complete. And you're pretty much 99% done at this point. Here I am putting in the last screw on the side of the Mavic Mini, and just like I have all the others, I'm going to make sure it's in there tight. In fact, I'm going to go over and recheck each of the screws just a little bit to make sure that they're in there good and tight, because you want everything just right when this thing is going to start flying again. And then you turn over the Mavic Mini, you reattach the blades, and voila, you are done.